We're building an ecosystem, a pickleball ecosystem. For us, it's all about the integration of these assets. And we're consistently looking for what's next in that pickleball ecosystem. I tell people I'm incredibly confident in the future of pickleball and I believe in its exponential growth. However, if I'm being honest, I don't know what commercial line of business will win. I don't know if it's rec, amateur, pro, technology, court solutions, facilities, paddles, balls, apparel. I don't know, right? So our objective is to build a diversified portfolio, essentially a mutual fund or an ETF of pickleball opportunities. But I'd be lying if I told you I knew what that would look like 5 years down the line.
You basically are just pouring money into pickleball generally through the different deal and betting on the sport itself. A pickleball mutual fund is very, very interesting. You're gonna get a lot of people who wanna throw money at you for that, I think.
If you're looking for a chill way to wind down after your rec game, listen up. Cycling Frog is giving away its best-selling THC seltzers for free. All you have to do is pay $2 for shipping. They're fruit-forward, taste great, and they're perfect for a post-game cool-down or just hanging out with friends. So grab your free can now by clicking the link in the description box. You're not going to want to miss this.
All right, guys, we got a lot of news to cover in Major League Pickleball this week. We've got the Ben Johns trade. We've got Ross Chaifetz coming on to talk about the St. Louis event, as well as a statement that he made about the Ben Johns trade. We have the extension of the trade deadline and some of the fishy circumstances surrounding that with Tice. We've got reactions to all of the other trades that happened at the Major League Pickleball tank deadline. The outlook for the new Mad Drops for their event coming up in Dallas and whether we think they can win the championship this year. Uh, the Flash falling from the number one spot in the standings. Paris mentioning that the courts were unsafe and a new number one player in Major League Pickleball. So we've got a lot to get to today. We are going to fly through it relatively quickly, but it's going to be a good episode. You're going to want to stick around to hear all the hot takes on this one because this is probably the most eventful weekend that we've had in Major League Pickleball so far. All right, welcome to the podcast, Ross Chaifetz, one of the owners of the St. Louis Shock. You guys just had an awesome event in your home venue, in your home stadium. You were in Chaifetz Arena in St. Louis, which has got to be pretty cool. Can you tell me just a little bit about what the planning, what everything that went into this event was like? Because obviously we had the press release probably about a month ago or maybe a little bit more where you guys are saying this is going to be the best pickleball event of all time.
Yeah, the planning really dates back 2 years ago. I mean, when we bought this expansion franchise, the St. Louis Shock, it was always our vision to host Major League Pickleball in Chaifetz Arena, and we wanted it to be the biggest and the best ever. We didn't know when the day would come when the opportunity would come to host at Chaifetz, and finally, it was our turn as MLP thinks about moving to a home team host venue model. We tried to be very meticulous and very thoughtful about the planning process going into this event. I worked with our team to put together a 60-day plan around marketing of tickets. We were very thoughtful in our approach to sponsors. We're very fortunate that when you host an operation like this, a Major League Pickleball event in a venue like Chaifetz Arena, you have a lot of optionality that you don't necessarily have at a traditional pickleball venue, and that extends to the sponsorship experience, the fan experience, and the team experience. So we were able to do things on all three of those levels to elevate the event in every way possible. We did things for the teams. We tried to go the extra mile by giving them suites to gather in, to watch matches, to eat, to prep, to store their gear, whatever they needed to do there. We tried to elevate the fan experience by giving them some of the most unique sight lines in pickleball, reserved club seating, and plush leather seats, and we tried to elevate the sponsor experience by giving them assets that they weren't typically able to access. Things like private designated areas in VIP and designated opportunities for them to elevate their brand through the LED scoreboards, meet and greets, and things of that sort. So our vision was really to elevate MLP on all three of those levels. And fortunately, Chaifetz Arena has the production capabilities to deliver all of those things. And we think we hit a home run. We heard throughout the weekend from fans, sponsors, and MLP executives just how great it was. The players as well. I mean, you get the typical knocks around using rolled out surfaces, but we think we did as good of a job as we could have done at our first go around at Chaifetz Arena, and we're looking forward to hosting again.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious, what's the capacity of Chaifetz Arena?
So we hold 10,600 for basketball events, and we can tweak that capacity for things like concerts and other sports, operations and experiences, depending upon what's needed and what that setup looks like.
Yeah, gotcha. And it looked like it was, 2/3 or so, maybe about half seemed to be sort of dedicated around the two main pickleball courts, the center court and grandstand. Now, I think this is actually more stake in this event than people give credit for because this is the first time we've actually tested pickleball in a legitimate arena. We're not ready for, you know, NBA stadiums yet, but this sort of I'm not trying to call it second tier in terms of size arena. I feel like this is a great testing ground, and I think that's what we are aspiring for with the MLP format. And so, do you feel like we passed the test? Are we going to start looking for centers like this around the country for planning purposes next year? Like, how do you feel about that?
I feel we did as good as we could have for a first go around at this type of event in a pro level arena. And you're right. I mean, what we're fortunate about in Chaifetz Arena is we fit the sweet spot in terms of seating capacity. We're not a United Center or a Madison Square Garden that's going to host 16, 18, 20,000, and we don't want to be. The sport is not there yet. It's getting there. But we did need, larger capacity than amateur hockey, right? Minor league hockey. Those sorts of venues don't have the production capabilities that Chaifetz does. Chaifetz Arena was actually voted the top arena in the world under 12,000 seats just 5 or 8 short years ago, not only because of the capacity, but because of the location, the production capabilities, and the staff. Chaifetz Arena is managed by Oakview Group, which is widely regarded as probably the best venue management firm in the country. So, working hand in glove with them, we were able to bring this to life in a very unique way. We look forward to hosting many of these in the future. And, that direct relationship that we have with Oakview Group will open up inroads to other venues throughout the country and, frankly, internationally that they either own or maybe manage. I think they were blown away by the event that we were able to put on. We beat the expectations that they had set for us, both in terms of attendance and seating and all those sorts of things. So, look, was it perfect? No, but I think to your point, the first time being in a pro level arena, I give us an A minus in terms of what I expected coming into this and what we were ultimately able to deliver.
Sure. So, what are those items that take you from an A minus to 100% A plus?
Well, I think we learned a lot about seating arrangements. I think we can be a little bit more strategic around how we funnel fans into certain sections to make sure that fans are, first of all, so that we look as good as possible on TV. One of the things we regret is with having that designated or reserved seating, inevitably you leave a little bit of open capacity on certain days because people reserve for 4-day passes and may not attend for the entire event. So we need to think about things like that and how it shows up on TV production. We also need to think about, and this is not just a Chaifetz Arena problem, this is an industry problem. We need to think about how we transition towards a court surface that is temporary or not permanent, but also safe and comfortable for the players to play on. There have been a couple players that commented on the rollout courts, not only at this event at Chaifetz, but in the past. And those are legitimate concerns. I mean, this league is only going to be as good as its players are capable of playing. And the moment we risk any level of injury, even if it's 1%, that's something that we can't afford. So it's a little bit out of our control, Zane, but it's something that the industry really needs to think about longer term. How do we bring safer, more stable, and more comfortable playing surfaces into these pro level arenas? Because this is the direction that the sport needs to go. We need to make sure that we have environments that are comfortable and safe for the players.
Yeah, so you're bringing up a good point, something that Paris actually brought up in her interview against after they had beaten the previous undefeated Flash. She mentioned that the rollout courts are safe, and I know that unless the Chaifetz group starts making courts as well, like that's kind of out of your control. You're stuck with whatever can be provided. I have actually been a huge proponent of rollout courts because I think they allow us to play in places like Central Park and Chaifetz Arena, but I can't deny at this point that I think they are, we'll just say it, maybe not dangerous, but there's without doubt more dangerous than the courts that we normally play on. Maybe that's a good way of putting it. I'm just curious, like what do we do? We don't want to give up venues like Chaifetz, but these courts are more dangerous than your normal outdoor tennis court surface.
Yeah, look, I don't have the perfect answer. I'm not a sports scientist and I'm definitely not a court construction expert. What I will say is, while we are living and breathing this as people in the pickleball industry, it's not unique to pickleball. You think about similar challenges in the NFL and in the MLB where they're kind of alternating between the pros and cons of playing on live grass versus turf. There are
Right.
benefits to each, both in terms of the maintenance and the cost side, and there are risks to each. With certain courts or certain fields versus others, you inevitably have injuries around, risks around player injuries. And as athletes get bigger and faster and stronger, arguably, regardless of the surface, you see it in the NBA. The court surface hasn't changed at all, and you see an increase in injuries. You see this prominence of Achilles tears with some of the highest level, most prominent athletes. So this is something that is being thought about, frankly, in every major sport. It just so happens that the spotlight is on us in pickleball right now because of the growth of the industry. I don't know what the solution is, but I do love the inroads and the accessibility that these temporary courts give us to test new environments and to test arenas like we were able to do this week. And I think it's a net positive. And with the trial and error of expanding into these some of these new era arenas, you're inevitably going to have a little bit of risk. Our question is, how do we minimize that risk to the lowest amount possible?
Yeah, I feel like the comparison, and this isn't something that I'd thought of before. The comparison between the artificial grass and the turf in the NFL, I feel like is probably the best comparison because players all want to play on the natural grass, and it does seem like there's an uptick in injuries when it comes to playing on the turf. But obviously, there's just turf makes it so much easier. Millions and millions of dollars easier to maintain. You can assure the same quality consistently with turf versus grass might not be quite as easy. So that's an interesting comparison that you have, and you know at least we're not having injuries the same level as the NFL. Then we'd have some real problems there. Um, but I also wanted to chat with you about the tweets that you had surrounding the Major League Pickleball trade between Ben and or Ben being traded to the Mad Drops. I think from what you mentioned in the follow up, I think your original tweet was not with full context, and so wanted to ask, just for you to say, what do you think about the Ben Johns to the LA Mad Drop transaction?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple levels of that should be addressed. In regards to my tweet or tweets plural, first of all, I admit that the words that I initially used were probably a bit harsh. I apologize for them being, interpreted incorrectly. I didn't mean to convey or accuse any wrongdoing by the league or anyone in particular. I did send a follow-up tweet to attempt to clarify that, not at anybody's request or demand, but just because I thought it was the right thing to do for the league and for our sport was to clarify my intentions there. And before I get into the meaning of that follow-up tweet, I think it's important to first say this. There's a big silver lining in all of this. I truly believe that Ben being on the Mad Drops is a good thing for our league and a good thing for the sport. I think it's good that he's on a team that is arguably one of the most storied and historic teams in MLP's short history. They've won championships. They are invested. They're a team with brand, a team that's investing in staff, a team with social presence, and I think they have a true desire to win. So I think Ben being a part of an organization like that will be good for our league, and I think if he's being honest, I think it will increase his competitive desire to win in MLP. And that's good for everybody and that's good for the sport. Um, in regards to my tweets themselves, what I meant to convey and what I really want to clarify is this. It's frustrating for teams like the Shock, the Flash, the Fives, the Sliders, and Brooklyn, who are building competitive rosters through draft processes and trade deadlines that have been set in stone for months, right? We're spending real money on players and we're doing it by the books, right? And these are rules that have really been set since the beginning of the calendar year. So, it's not just us. I think there's a general sentiment. I heard it in the crowds, in the stands. I see it on Twitter. It's among fans, industry, other team owners. There's a general sentiment that the way this went down just feels a little bit strange, right? And I'm not the only one to comment on that. So my point in all this
I
is that
don't
I
think
think
anybody sees differently on that. I've yet to see somebody who's like, "Yeah, that's just all on the up and up." I was speaking with Eric Tice previously, and I think my previous background was I was an auditor for Deloitte, and so we had to be independent in fact, of course, but we also had to maintain independence in appearance, and this is not appear independent. Their intentions, everything could be all well and pure behind the scenes, and let's hope that that's the case, but the optics of this are just bad. Like, it's impossible to say otherwise.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the frustrating thing for me personally and for other team owners is that the fact that this came in essentially in the 25th hour of the day, right? We had a deadline that had been communicated, and now you have a league altering trade with extreme playoff implications, right? Now you have a team that will likely end up in probably the 4 to 6 seed range going into the playoffs, a team that on paper, had they been utilizing this current roster for the entire season, is probably a top 3 team, no matter how you slice it. And so when you think about what the matchups are gonna look like going into that playoff environment, it alters the seeding and the playoff route in a way that probably isn't fair to some of the teams that made roster changes at the beginning of the season or throughout the season. And there's additional layers of this that I won't go into. I think what this boils down to is it's the optics of the process that people are a
Right.
bit frustrated around. And I want to be clear, and I said this in my tweet. I'm one of the biggest believers in MLP that there is. I think the upside potential of this league and our sport is arguably the biggest from a multiple perspective of any pro league right now when you look at the growth of pickleball. But for our league to accomplish its goals and reach the levels that I think it can reach, there's a level of seriousness that we need to echo and reflect both inside of the league, and we need to reflect that seriousness in an outward presence. And we have to make sure that we're doing things by the books and we're not changing things in the 11th hour of the day.
Certainly. It's gotta be you have to develop decent processes right now to be legitimate in that regard, and I think we're in agreement, like, the outcome might be good, the process by which it happened leaves something to be desired, we'll put it that way. Um, so, couple other questions. What's next for the shock? Obviously, we're, going ahead, looking to win the championship this year. You'll have to beat us again, and nobody beats us 4 times in a row, that's for sure, and now that I'm on the bench, Ross, you better watch out because I can really focus on my shit talk too. So, um, anyway, what's next for the Shock after this season? You guys are an ownership group that's taking it as seriously as anybody, investing as much as anybody. Like, what's the next step in the Shock's progression?
Yeah, well, our first objective is to win the season finals this year. First and foremost, we're about winning, but we're also about building
That'd be your
professional.
first championship, right?
It would be our first championship,
Oh, okay,
exactly
yeah, it
right.
feels pretty good when you get those.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wouldn't know, but maybe sometime soon. We do have players on.
I I couldn't have you on here and not talk a little shit for the rivalry, dude.
Hey, I get it. I get it. I mean, it's a tough go. You guys won the midseason last year, and then you fell short in the final. So, like, anything could happen. Um, but in terms of what's next for us, um, we're building an ecosystem, a pickleball ecosystem. The Shock are the hub of that hub and spoke model, and we have a variety of ancillary assets around it. Of course, we have the investment in UPA directly. We have an investment in Pickle Tile, which is the leading court construction company in the U.S., which I'm the vice chairman of. We now have Stack Athletics, which has acquired Vulcan. Of course, you've got the Duper investment. We've got the Pickler investment. So for us, it's all about the integration of these assets. And we're consistently looking for what's next in that pickleball ecosystem. I tell people I'm incredibly confident in the future of pickleball, and I believe in its exponential growth. I believe that will continue. However, if I'm being honest, I don't know what commercial line of business will win. I don't know if it's rec, amateur, pro, technology, court solutions, facilities, paddles, balls, apparel. I don't know. right? So our objective is to build a diversified portfolio, essentially a mutual fund or an ETF of pickleball opportunities. And I believe that at the end of the day, if you can do those things and if you can integrate them properly and create synergies between each of those assets, you've got a winning formula. But I'd be lying if I told you I knew what that would look like 5 years down the line. So for us, it's about continuing to build an ecosystem and a portfolio in the fastest growing sport in the world that I believe is only going to continue. And we've only really touched the US market now. I mean, the international opportunities are massive. So there's just so much wind in our sails for this sport and for our portfolio. I really just can't wait to see where it goes over the next couple of years.
For sure. So you've got a bunch of different assets across the pickleball landscape to basically, you know, normally people invest in one thing or another within the industry, but when you broaden that out so much, you basically are just pouring money into pickleball generally through the different deal and betting on the sport itself, which yeah, a pickleball mutual fund is very, very interesting. You're gonna get a lot of people who wanna throw money at you for that, I think. Um, yeah, interesting. Okay. Well, sweet. Ross, I appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. And oh, I gotta hey say one more thing. You guys took over the number one spot in the seedings from the Dallas Flash. You've got Hayden Patriquin, who went 10-0 at the home event and is now number one player in MLP stats wise for this season behind Patrick Smith and Marcella Holmes, which we got to get them off the web. We got to get that for starters. All right. We can't have somebody who's 2-0 at the top of the standings list. It's Hayden. All right. What does that mean for you guys to show out at the home event, which was a murderer's row of teams, four of the top five? Um, what does that mean for you guys to show out in front of your home crowd, take over the number one spot in the standings on a points per match basis? And what does it mean for Hayden too, from your perspective?
Well, all the above are incredibly positive. We believe since the beginning of the season, we've believed that we're the number one team in this league. We just had to have the opportunity to prove it, right? And we fell short to the Flash in that midseason final, which was a tough loss for us. But, I said to the team last year, we were knocked out early of that midseason tournament as well. And that lit a flame under our butts. And we really got it in gear for the second half of the season. We didn't accomplish our goal last year, but we think this year is a new year and a new opportunity. So we're looking at it the same way. We obviously fell short in the midseason tournament, but we really kicked it into gear, to your point, Zane, this weekend in St. Louis. And to be able to do it in front of our fans, to knock off three or four of the top five teams was an incredible feeling. But what I'm so impressed about is the way we did it. Coming into this event, our women had only had two losses, right? And those two losses they had were really our only two losses throughout the entire season. If you reflect on what the women did this weekend, they probably fell a little bit short of their capabilities and their expectations. They dropped a few more games than they should have or would have liked to, but it's our mixed doubles pairings that have really, really lit a flame under us this year. Gabe and Kate, in particular, have been playing out of their minds. Last year, they had a mixed win percentage that was below 50%, I believe closer to 35 or 40%. This year, they're trending towards 80%. So when you think about the fact that we're really firing on all cylinders across all doubles disciplines, gender and mixed, it makes us a really tough team to beat. Because even when our women, who are arguably, if not number one, definitely a top three women's duo in the sport, even if they drop a match, if we can, get that boys win and then go 2-0 in mixed and avoid that dream breaker, I mean, we're really, really tough to beat. So I'm incredibly proud of our players. Hayden, to your point, 10-0 this weekend. He played out of his mind. Gabe Tardio, I think, is playing like one of the best players in MLP right now. So we're firing on all cylinders. Anna Bright's doing what she needs to do, doing what she's always done, leading our team from the top as one of the best captains in the sport, next to yourself, of course. And then Kate Fahey, who has just totally grown into a woman of her own in this league, one of the most respected females in the sport, in my opinion, the most improved player this season. So we're firing on all cylinders. We're really, really excited about the team we put out there. We've got a great player coach in Eric Lang, who helps construct game plans, and Yuta
Dude,
Castillo.
Lang is the best. I love Eric.
Yeah, so we're really well rounded. We're really happy about the product we're putting out there and the results we've accomplished.
Nice. Well, I think with the trade, with everything that's happening, with you guys taking over number one in the standings, with our trade as well, this is going to be an epic, epic finish to the Major League Pickleball season, and something that we've all wanted for a while. candidly, I felt like last year was anticlimactic with playing the semifinals and finals over 2 days and all 3 finals matches in a single day. Like, this year, I feel like the buildup is far, far stronger, and these last couple of weeks of the regular season and into the playoffs are gonna be what we had all expected and hoped from Major League Pickleball, so it'll be exciting to see who can take this one home.
100%. And we're looking forward to facing you guys again this weekend in Dallas then.
Absolutely. That's always fun. That's always fun. We'll have to put our niceties aside. Not like we have trouble doing that at any point, but all right. Well, we will see you this weekend in Dallas. And Ross, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right. T Dog, welcome back to the podcast. Wow. There is so much to talk about this week. We've got the trade deadline extension and all of the trades, the Ben Johns trade and everything that that means for the league. We've got standings updates and whether or not the Flash are still the number one team. Got a new number one player, all of that stuff. So first and foremost, can you tell me your understanding of why the trade deadline was extended?
Yeah. So the league sent out a memo to teams on Tuesday, basically saying, "Hey, challenger level, we've had a little bit of I'll say like lack of information on terms of like next year's challenger level. What does that look like? How many teams are there going to be, et cetera, et cetera." The running thought was all of the teams would be moved from challenger to premier in 2026.
Right.
And then on
That's what I had
Tuesday,
thought.
yeah. So everybody was kind of on the same page, but there was no like, it wasn't written anywhere or anything like that. So, long story short, Tuesday comes along and the league announces only one team from Challenger is going to move up from Challenger to Premier. And so the winner of the Challenger level is going to go up. Everybody else is staying in Challenger level. And so the guys with which the trade deadline was extended was to allow for those challenger level teams to make more decisions based on the new news that they may not have as much of a chance in terms of getting to premier level.
Interesting. Okay.
So
And
that's what I got for you. I mean, here's the deal. I think like one or two challenger level deals may have happened, but for the most part, the vast majority of deals that were had were in the premier level. So I don't know. I don't know if that information is super accurate. We'll see.
yeah, so I mean, like, that's the league statement. What's your opinion on why the trade deadline was extended, or should we say
Um,
the tank deadline?
the tank deadline. Here's the deal. I'm gonna be like, you're not gonna like my answer, so we're gonna lead with that. I legitimately do think the league made a rule change with Challenger, and they were like, I don't want. It feels weird making them make decisions within 24 hours on stuff that they didn't know about. Let's extend the deal. I want to believe that that is true, and to a certain extent, I do believe it's true. However, having the flurry of trades that happened between then and now, it feels like somewhat of a farce in terms of like, oh, this is the real reason, but this now here's the deal. I will talk about this. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. We might as well talk about it now. My sources tell me if the trade deadline were to have stayed the same, I still think the Ben deal gets done. It may not have been the same deal. It may have been a little bit of a different deal, or it may have been the same deal, but I do think they were ready to get it done. And then once the trade deadline was extended, they had a little more time to make sure everybody felt great about it before Saturday. Now, all these other nonsensical trades with seems like musical chairs at this point definitely were not getting done. So that's my take on it. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to believe that this was getting done, and here, like, supporting that, this trade had to have for the Ben Johns trade had to have been in the works before the trade deadline. It just makes it look bad that the deadline was moved, and then Tom's Dundon's team, the Hogs, ended up with a fire sale of every player on their team afterwards. That's
Yeah.
just a atrocious look, but I I wish they would have just done it before the original trade deadline, and then we could have avoided that speculation. But we have to, like, it's hard to not speculate about that. That the trade deadline was moved, and then a trade involved Connor, Tom, Ben Johns, and the Mad Drops. Like, it's just regardless, so back when I was an auditor, we had to be impartial in both fact and appearance, right? To avoid any sort of deal. They could very well be impartial on this in fact, but they blew
Yeah.
the appearance, which makes
Agreed.
it tough to sort of give that benefit of the doubt. And then, the flash sale that occurred afterwards of the with the Hogs eliminating their entire roster. What's their starting lineup at this point? It's Ava Ignatowicz,
Oh, I
Craig
knew you were gonna
Johnson.
ask me. Okay, who do you have? Maybe I can fill in the pieces.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. I don't want to get
Okay.
too off topic.
Okay. So yeah, I agree with you. I do think in actuality, I think it was fine, but the perception is not great. I'll get for example, you guys traded for No Way. That trade was done before the deadline. Like there was no like, oh, this is an issue, or we're talking about Ryan Harwood breaking the rules, or we're not talking about that. Like that deal was done before the deadline, and like it is what it is. There's no real like conspiracy theories related to that one. But now that this one happened on a Saturday, 3 days after the second pushback of a trade deadline, by the way, it just feels a little awkward.
Yeah. So other trades that we had were we've got Dallas acquired Roscoe Bellamy, and Carolina received Yvonne and Cash from Dallas. Dallas, not sure why they're paying for substitutes. They also acquired Sam Parker to their squad as well, which makes sense because she's Dallas based. But why is Dallas paying for subs right now?
I will say this, both Roscoe and Sam were drafted this year. So that means that they're under the like contract. They can stay with the Flash this year, next year, and the following year. Now, Roscoe,
They're
I'm
in
not
their they're in their
100% sure.
substitute spot though. So if they're in
Yeah,
their substitute spot, so any team below them could drop somebody out of their starting lineup and steal them next year.
potentially, yeah, based on the rules that we had this year, but who knows what I mean, we changed the rules 17
Yeah,
times
that's
this
true.
year. Who knows what the hell the rules are gonna be next year? Especially if, the clamoring that you and I have made and several hundred others have made with, like, interchanging lineups and Dream Breaker teams, like, who knows with that? Now, so the Roscoe one, he's a great bench guy from everything I've heard, so I get that
Mm.
part.
Little energy on the Flash
A
sidelines.
little energy couldn't hurt anything, but also, and this could be a nothing burger, but like Tyra rolled her ankle pretty bad this weekend. She was either wearing a wrap, like a tape job, or she was wearing an ASO wrap on that ankle. Either way, it didn't look great. She looked like she was moving fine, but with 4 days until MLP Dallas, I actually love the Sam Parker pickup because she's probably not thinking. I would say she's the best woman sub now in Premier, either one or two, and she's very good at singles. And she could just fill in right away if Tyra is actually hurt for a little while. They have a month until playoffs. Blah blah blah. Like I actually do like this pickup for Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I just feel like they don't. I feel like they don't see the starting lineup unless something or another is
Oh, for
changed
sure.
there.
Yeah, I
Um,
can't imagine that cash was very much. Like we're talking low five figures, high four figures. I have no knowledge of any of that, but just based on the teams involved and who's going where, like that can't be much cash involved.
so we also had the Hogs trading off a couple more players. They traded off
Yeah.
Martin and Ava to Miami and acquired Craig. I'm sorry, they traded off Martin and Tammy and they acquired Ava Ignatowicz and Craig Johnson. So I think the Hogs starting lineup is French because I think they got Brandon French back
They did.
in the Ben John sale.
Yep.
French and Yvonne, which are the two Dallas boys and two of Dundon's boys, and then Ava Ignatowicz and Donna Fanaro?
Liz
Donna?
Trueluck. Liz Trueluck.
Liz Trueluck. Okay, Liz.
Liz Trueluck is the best player out of this group in terms of like
Yeah.
just
Liz is
potential,
good.
whatever. Yeah.
Liz is good.
So here's the good thing for the Hawks. I think they only have 5 or 6 matches left. Like they're not going to have to go through too much torture to like get their season over with. But that season is over. Like I mean, that's just Fire
That
Sale
season's
City is really
of
what it is.
yeah. The tank deadline. I'm going with that. The
Okay.
tank deadline. Um, so okay, we had a couple what's your take on the merit of the Ben Johns trade? Because
Okay.
if you eliminate like we were taught to do in or simplify as we were taught to do in math class, basically Mad Drops traded Brandon French and cash for Ben Johns is the general outcome of that simplified trade between the two of
Yeah,
those
that's the
teams.
simplest version of that possible. It's way more complicated than that, but yes, I would agree with that.
General take, good thing, bad thing, despite like not talking about the trade deadline, moving,
Mhm.
all that, not good. General thoughts of Ben Johns to the Mad Drops and whether it's good or bad for the league.
Okay, few thought. I have a lot of. I'm gonna ramble. Is what's gonna happen here. So I'm full warning to everybody involved. First and foremost, LA was in a bad spot, right? Like through no fault of their own, the league put. I mean, I guess you could say Wang Yung put them in a bad spot. The league put them in a bad spot. It's not like they wanted Wang Yung to have his contract terminated. So then LA is scrambling trying to find a top level guy to pair with their already very good team to see if they can make a run at this. So I would think if I was in LA's shoes, I don't know, maybe going after the disgruntled best player in the world who hasn't played well for a team that has been not great would be a good option to go after. So I understand LA going after him. I know that, so I'm sure they went after others. I don't know who, but like, I'm very confident they were asking about other top level guys. Let's talk about the actual trade for a second, because I think this is going a little under the radar. First and foremost, it's a 3-team trade, but I need to point out why it's a 3-team trade. This did not need to be a 3-team trade. So, first and foremost, Ben and Etta were traded to LA for cash. That's the first part of this. And I need to be clear on this because it was both Ben and Etta. Now, we all know the $200,000 trade limit is per player or per transaction. So, with Etta involved, LA was able to send much, much more than 200,000 to LA. I'm assuming it's 400 or very close to 400,000. That's just an assumption. I have no sources. No one find me. I don't know, but that's the assumption I'm making. We're close to 400 there for Ben. So this was a creative way to get Carolina up to $400,000. I do believe that the dollar amount is somewhere actually near the $400,000 mark. And here's the other reason it had to be a 3-way trade. Utah could have just traded with LA for Etta. The problem is then Carolina would not have gotten the dollars from LA for both. So LA sends a ton of money to Carolina. Then Utah sends whatever they sent for Etta to LA to make up a little bit of the money that they sent to Carolina. Hope that makes sense. But it had to be a 3-way deal to ensure that Carolina got as much money for Ben Johns as possible.
None of that makes sense, Tice, but
Okay,
I think
got
that's
it.
as good of an explanation as we're gonna get. It was
Yep.
French and a bunch of cash for Ben Johns, essentially, and somewhere or another, Etta and Donna got thrown around in there. The Utah Black Diamonds are a pretty decent team now, too.
Yeah. Yeah. They have Tyler, Connor, Elise, and Etta. And they were already probably going to be a playoff team, and now they're for sure going to be a playoff team. I like Utah's team.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's talk about the Mad Drops outlook.
Yeah.
They can't get to the they cannot pass Brooklyn as the 4 seed, can they?
No.
They can't? Okay. They
They have
can
6 matches left. Okay. And the 6 matches, they have 2 easy ones. They play the Hustlers and the Hogs, which now are vying for the worst teams in Premier. But
right.
also in Dallas in 3 days, they play St. Louis, Texas, you guys, and Dallas. So, yes, they're a very good team, but do we expect them to be all of a sudden running like 2.5 points per match in 6 matches? I don't see it happening.
Yeah, so they need uh 15 points to tie the Sliders and they have 6 matches. So they'll
Yep.
get their 6 points. They'll get 6 points against the Hustlers and the Hogs, which
Yep.
means they need 9 points in 4 matches against the Fives, St.
St.
Louis.
Louis, Texas, and Dallas. Is it
Yeah,
possible? Sure. Is it likely? I don't think so. So I think they're either going to be the 5 or the 6, most likely the 6 seed if I was LA.
right. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I think that makes things more interesting because I like the idea of them being in that 6 seed because of the way the seedings are shaking out. Like, St. Louis and Dallas are more likely than not to be the top 2 seeds. We have a long shot at catching up to the Flash, but a shot nonetheless to take that number 2 seed. But take us through how the playoff picture works. St. Louis and or the top 2 seeds would get a bye through the first round of the playoffs. Actually, you know what? Just tell me, Tice. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on.
Okay. Yep. So the playoffs were confusing. They were confusing to me. I actually looked this up like in the rule book last week or the week before because I actually had it wrong and I was thinking what you were thinking. So we're both wrong. I'll fix it right now. 10 teams make the playoffs. First round of playoffs. 7 seed gets to choose who they want to play in San Diego. They either get to choose the 9 seed or the 10 seed. 8 seed plays whoever the 7 seed doesn't want. And this is a super important. It's like the NBA play-in game. It's only one game. It's only one match. It's not in the normal playoffs. It's 2 out of 3. This is one match. Whoever wins wins. So from there, the 2 winners of that are seeded. Go ahead. You have a
So
question.
that's like the NBA play-in, essentially, like you said. So
Exactly.
that's
Yep.
like kind of like a pigtail sort of match.
Exactly. Yep.
And
But
so once that pigtail is decided, then we're into the quarterfinals.
exactly. And now we have 8 teams left. The 2 teams that won the play-in, if we want to call it that, are now seeded 7 and 8. So the 1 seed, let's just use the Shock because I don't like saying 1 seed or whatever. Let's just use the Shock as a 1 seed because they're the 1 seed right now.
Yeah.
The Shock get to choose who they play, and they get to choose anyone from the 5, 6, 7, or 8 seed who they play. Then you take that team off the board, and the 2 seed gets to pick, and then the 3 seed gets to pick, and then the 4 seed is stuck with whoever didn't get picked from the 5, 6, 7, and 8.
So most likely, let's take all of the positions being the same. So the
Yep.
rankings are St. Louis, Dallas, Jersey, Brooklyn, Columbus, LA, Orlando, or sorry, Texas, Orlando. Let's say that that's the quarterfinal participants. St.
Okay.
Louis gets to choose. My guess is they would probably choose of that group Orlando.
Agreed.
Dallas gets to choose next. I think that they would probably then take the Ranchers.
Agreed.
We would get to choose after that, and we can choose from
LA.
Brooklyn, LA, Columbus, or we
Nope.
couldn't pick Brooklyn.
You can't pick. Yeah, that was my bad. So you can either
So
pick LA or Columbus.
The 3 seed would not be able to pick the 4 seed. We would be able to pick LA or Columbus. Okay. Gotcha. So
Which is a tough one, right? Like,
right. So let's say we
yeah.
wanted to avoid that. We pick Columbus. That means that Brooklyn. That means that their path to the championship would be through Brooklyn, Flash, and Shock, most likely.
Yeah. So just a friendly reminder to the folks at home, because we just went through the playoff thing. Remember that every round, so we just talked about the quarters. Let's say we get to the semis, the 2 top teams, then the first team that's like the best seeded team gets to pick again who they want to play, either the 3 or 4 seed. So very likely, you're right. It looks like Brooklyn, like LA very well could go through Brooklyn, then the Flash, then St. Louis. Like that's a hell of a gauntlet to go through to win. Here's the deal though, dude. Like 2 months ago, we're like, man, I'm hoping the playoffs will do something. Like maybe the Fives can upset the Flash or the Shock, and maybe one of these other teams could kind of sneak in there. Like it was like a dud. And now I'm like freaking pumped for the playoffs because we have I legitimately think we have 7 teams that could possibly win the whole thing. Now the odds are obviously stacked for
6.
4.
There's 6 who could conceive. I think that there's 4 front runners: Shock, Flash, Mad Drops, and I think that the way that Matty Pickles had his tiers today was correct. I think the Flash and Shock are still S tier. I think the Mad Drops have to prove that they are S tier. I think Mad Drops and us are A tier. And then I think that you have Brooklyn and Columbus that are B tier, Ranchers and Squeeze are C tier based on just this playoff picture. I don't
Got it.
think I don't
I
think
would
that
just
the
argue that
Rancher
the Ranchers are in the B tier. That's the only difference.
There's an argument to be made, but we'll put them. I mean, they would be at the bottom of that B tier. They can play very well. They did just beat Columbus, but I don't think
Right.
they're as much of a threat to get super hot and win a championship as Columbus were. I would put Columbus's odds at winning a championship better than the Ranchers.
Yeah, for sure. I'm saying, like, if I'm saying 7, like, the Ranchers have, like, a 5% chance or something. Like, it's not equal, but I would say legitimately there seems to be, like, 7 teams, like, 6 or 7 teams that have a shot, but, like, any one of the like, if any one of those 6 beat the other 6, I don't think it would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's the craziest thing that's ever happened," which is exciting for the playoffs, right? Because now you're gonna have a really exciting round in San Diego, and then, like, a week or 2 later, you're gonna have another semis and finals that are really exciting in New York City. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. Well, it's going to be a fun uphill battle for them, and I think that they've probably made themselves the most hated team in MLP, taking over from either us or the Shock at this point. I think there's going to be much more cheering against them than cheering for them. And you know, going back to even Brooklyn, Brooklyn had a hell of a season considering Deckel Bar was
Dude,
out for like at least half of it. AJ filled in really nicely. Like Deckel coming in to that team makes them a lot scarier too. Not to say that I mean AJ stepped in with a bunch of huge wins. AJ was great for
yeah.
that team, but
AJ
like
was so good. And here's a deal that I want to like talk about. And listen, Matty Pickles came out with some, his little weird charts or whatever. No, I'm just kidding. I love his charts. But he said there's like 7 legitimately very good women's teams, and then the rest is like a big drop off. But one of them is Rachel and Jackie, who I questioned in the earlier part of the season. Like, are they going to be as good as they think they are? Are they going to be able to cover middle? And the answer is yes. They're very good. And both of them are super freaking steady. Like, they had to play with Pat Smith, AJ a bunch. I think, like, it's just like they had all this turbulence around them, right? Like, Riley's out for a little bit. Deckel has been out for a month. And yet they still win, and they're in the 4 seed right now. Like, it's absolutely insane how well Brooklyn has played despite all of the issues.
yeah, for sure. I honestly forgot about Riley being out. They had a couple of matches where both of their guys were out.
Yeah,
Actually, that was
for
the
sure.
Phoenix one, right? Where or there's one of them. Maybe it was
No,
New
it was,
York.
what was the one
No,
after
it wasn't
Phoenix?
New
Was it
York.
Daytona or
Yeah, but I
New
don't think they were
York?
at Daytona. There was New York. Who cares? There was somewhere where
Yeah,
both of their
it
players
was,
were
yeah.
out.
Oh,
All right.
by the way, super sub AJ Kohler, I just looked it up, has now played 22 matches this season, which is like more than like 75% of the starters on most other teams. So
Yeah,
kudos,
that's
AJ.
crazy.
Thank you for being the super sub you are.
Do you know what his record is too? Like he's got to have at
I
least a
could look it up.
500 record.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure, way above 500. Yeah.
yeah.
He had to play for the Hustlers for 5 matches, so maybe it's close.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah, man, that's hilarious. It's crazy to me that he still just is not picked up. It's just wild. Free AJ Kohler. Okay, one last thing. What do you make of the Flash falling to Columbus and then the Flash falling to the Shock and finally, a dream breaker win over Chicago? Rough St. Louis event for the Flash.
Here's the deal. We're all humans. And this was bound to happen at some point. Like, they have been playing unbelievable. And I'm not saying they've gotten lucky before, but here's what I will say. The reason I have said the Dallas Flash are the best team in MLP up until this event, and the same can very much now be said for the Shock, is if one line has a weird loss, another line just randomly picks it up. So it doesn't really like, oh man, Georgia and Tyra just lost. That's okay. Tyra and Augie are going to kick the shit out of somebody else. And then all of a sudden they're going to win in regulation again. And so this team has time and time again, obviously 15 matches in a row, won despite having 1 or 2 losses here or there. And this weekend, it just came to fruition that like some of their lines weren't able to make it up. The craziest part to me still is the line that has the least winning percentage for the Dallas Flash is Augie and JW. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy to me. But that's where we're at. And so you know, it was bound to happen. I think they handled it well. I think they're going to come out firing just like I mean, listen, mid-season tournament, Anna Bright was super pissed, left stormed off after losing. She didn't like outwardly like make any whatever. But she left there quickly. I know the Shock were not happy about losing that match and losing the midseason tournament. And then they just came out and, like, I forget who they played first. They won 4-0, won 3-1. Like, they just rolled through people, and Hayden Patrick looked like the best player in pickleball. And maybe. And I foresee something like that happening for Dallas. The only question mark I have, again, I know I brought it up already, was Tyra's ankle. Hopefully she's 100% or close to it. But even Tyra's a freak athlete. Like, even at 90%, Tyra's fine. Like, as long as she can deal with the pain, she's one of the quickest women on tour. So I think they're going to come out and, like, crush in Dallas.
I've said this before, and I've, like, really meant it lately. This is going to be I'm, like, honestly just so excited to watch the rest of this season play out because it's anybody's game. It really is. So, um, Dallas this week, we'll get to see just how Ben plays with his new team. Tough schedule for the Mad Drops. It'll be a good test for them on a new team. But, T-Dog, anything else you got for us for this week?
Did we talk about the Paris comment with the rollout courts?
I did I did a little bit with Ross. I'm not sure whether we're gonna put that
Okay.
before this or not, but do you have a take on it?
Yeah. The rollout courts. So here's my take. And I think you and I are very aligned on this, is like, it's very cool for us to be able to go into an arena and play like Major League Pickleball. I think that could be the future if we can figure it out. I think we had some lighting issues and we had some rollout court issues. If some sort of engineer, because at the end of the day, like, you talked about going and playing in New York City or going and playing in Fontainebleau or whatever hotel, right? Like, these things are awesome. If we can figure out how to make a base layer be very, very, very good, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if we can figure out a base layer to put on top of something, then put the rollout courts, we need some engineers to figure out how to make the rollout courts a little, like, even 10% better. Because I obviously wasn't on championship court, but I watched like a memes of pickleball, and I think Riley hit a ball to the corner, like a sideline of a kitchen, and it literally just, like, died because you could
It
literally
rolled.
see
Yeah.
you could see the little wrinkle in the mat, and I was like, man, like, that's not good. So if we could figure out a way to make the foundation or subsurface better, I think this is the way of the future, because you could go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think that the playability issues are something that we can deal with. I think that the injury issues are not something we can really overlook anymore.
Agreed.
Like, I mean, there's just too long of a history, and too many players have gotten injured on these courts. And, like, fortunately, they've all been injuries where they've been able to come back within a couple weeks. It's sprained ankle. It's something not crazy serious, but we are playing with fire with those. It's not if, it's when somebody tears something and is out for a season on those type of courts.
Here's one other thing, and Tyra's thing, I don't know if it was necessarily the court, but if you
It was
watch
the
that play,
dimensions, right? It was that
the
she ran into
dimensions, and also there's like a sponsor, what would you call that, wall? You
I
know
don't
what I'm
know.
talking about?
Yeah.
Like, it's like a sponsored ad, but it's like short. It's like maybe 2 feet high. Here's I know we talk about production and all of the replay. Well, first of all, we lost replays a bunch during this. We can't keep having that happen. Let's figure that out. Secondly, I watch a lot of Premier League soccer, and I know now I'm off on it. And Zane's like, "What? Where are we going with this?" But
I'm
Premier
with you,
League
T Dog.
soccer, if you're watching and you're watching any of the match, and you see like a billboard by the sideline, that's all electronic. That doesn't exist in real life, and it's just on the broadcast.
It's like the sponsor logos on the NBA court, right? They're
Right,
constantly
like all
changing
of
now.
those. And so, like, we need to move towards that, because those listen, without the sponsors, we don't have money, and we don't play players, and we don't have pickleball. Like, I understand that probably better than most people. But for safety of the players, we need to move those sponsor boards back a little bit, because Tyra basically running and jumping off of a sponsor board and kicking it away, like maybe 10 feet away, 8 feet away from the court, is not ideal. We got to figure out how to make that a little bit of a safer situation no matter where you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure hasn't the APP actually implemented that? I feel like I saw, like, their sponsor logos just added on in the production in the kitchen. I could be fuzzy on that. I feel like that happened. I noticed it like 6 months ago. I don't know if they still do it or not, but I feel
No,
like they
I
were
think they
doing that.
do. Yeah, I think they do some version of that for sure.
Yeah,
So
because I'm not gonna
all
lie,
that
I'm
to
also
say,
sick of. having a huge white logo, Torre logo in the middle of a kitchen too.
Yeah, it wasn't at this one, but now, nope, never mind. We're not even gonna get into that. But yes, the huge white logo is not ideal for you guys. I can't imagine the sightline because that has to affect it. Like, there's no way that huge white logo is not affecting a dink.
Yep. You're right. So, I
I
mean,
think
if
that's it
if
for
we can
me.
put ice hockey in a indoor facility, like we've got to be able to put pickleball courts down.
Yep,
You would
got
think
to
that'd be
figure it out.
easier. But
Yeah.
all right, T Dog, thanks for popping on. Till next week. Some more
Yep.
crazy news? I'm sure more crazy news will happen, but at least the tank
I hope
deadline is
not.
over.
Yeah. All right. Talk soon.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had fun,